Let's get something straight. Just because a shot looks epic as an individual clip doesn't mean it will automatically make your story better. YouTube is flooded with videos about cinematic gimbal moves, but these shots quickly lose value if you don't consider the context behind the movement. In this video, I'm going to explain the motivation behind the 5 most popular camera movements on the gimbal. Instead of showing you how to do them, I'm going to tell you why and when to use them. Camera movement can be broken down into 2 basic categories: motivated and unmotivated. Motivated movement is when the camera has a reason to move. For example, when you're following or tracking a subject in your frame. The viewer is so focused on the movement of the subject that they're concentrating less on the camera, as long as the camera keeps up the consistency of movement. With unmotivated movement, the camera doesn't need a reason to move. For example, your subject might be stationary, but how it moves can make your shot more dynamic or create a certain feeling, but it can also be a distraction. When you do an unmotivated gimbal movement out of context, it quickly draws attention to the camera instead of what's happening in the frame. Now let's dig into those movements. Number 1, the orbit. Even though orbit technically means going around your subject, there are very few cases where I actually do a full wraparound. A half orbit is usually enough, and it's easier to get a consistent shot because if your movement isn't smooth throughout, the shot loses power immediately and draws attention to the camera. The 3 whys for doing this shot. Number 1, to reveal the environment around your character. Number 2, to show their experience of the environment. And 3, as a hero shot. When? This is one of those movements that you want to save for the right time. And just like slow motion, it becomes stale very quickly if you overdo it. Your best moment is when your music reaches a climax of some sort. For example, in a travel film, that moment the character arrives at the grand view. Or in a documentary, when your character finally gets her pilot's license. The only time I use a wider lens is if the focus is more on the surroundings, but the moment we focus on the character, I prefer a 35mm and up in order to get more of the parallax effect with the background. To amplify the hero effect, make sure you shoot from a lower angle since it makes your character appear bigger. The secret to an epic orbit shot is to move the camera opposite to the movement of your character. When I move the camera in the same direction, something just feels off. But the moment I switch it around, it feels more dynamic. Number 2, the tracking shot. Why? This motivated movement is a great way to show progression as your subject travels from one scene to the next. When? By making the viewer part of the journey, it creates a sense of connection with your character. And it's also a great way to show lots of your environment in a single take. In order to really sell the movement, it's crucial to keep the framing and speed constant as you move with your subject, because the moment you miss a beat, the shot starts to distract. A good way to ensure a smooth tracking shot is to give your talent a head start, and as you catch up, you can ease into the required speed for a more consistent frame. Tracking shots look amazing when you have something in the foreground, because these elements create more depth and enhances the feeling of movement. If you don't have anything in the foreground, you can go low and the ground itself will act as a foreground. You can spice it up even more by having something move in the opposite direction, or by compressing the frame with a longer lens. Number 3, the forward push. Why? The purpose of this shot is either to take you closer to your next frame or to stress the importance of a subject or emotion of a character. Pushing forward here makes you feel like you're walking into the quarrel and all of a sudden you're in the middle of an argument. The cut after the forward push is closer because the camera brought us closer. This intentional movement helps your video to flow between frames, also illustrated in this example. Pushing forward with a wider lens, with the next cut taking us closer to the waterfall. But in this case, there's a slight pullback because the cut after goes back to wide. So in essence, the movements took me from pushing forward into a close-up, with the close-up going backwards into a wide. A mistake would be to pull back the camera on the wide and then cut to a close-up. Pushing forward on a stationary character can put the emphasis on their emotions, but it's also a great way to establish importance. Combine it with a follow shot, and in the beginning, the focus is on where the character is in the environment. But as we get closer, we're starting to experience the environment with the character, as if we're looking over his shoulder. Number 4, the pullback. The biggest reason you would want to do this shot is to reveal something or someone important. Ideally something that's not in the frame when you start the movement. Whether it's your character, the surroundings, or an important object, ask yourself who or what am I introducing into the frame. With a character, the shot will usually start with a focus on the surroundings, but as your character walks into the frame, the focus is on them. The pullback can also be used to end the scene or to act as a transition into the next scene, like in my short film Time to Move On, where I'm leaving the room and the transition to the next cut, also a pullback. Although this shot was filmed handheld, the principle is still the same. I'm pulling back to reveal an important character in the frame, a crucial part in the story. Number 5. The crane shot. Why? A crane shot is a great way to establish a location and give context of the surroundings before jumping into a bunch of close-ups. When? Generally, this shot is better utilized at the beginning or ending of a scene, and not so much in the middle. I used to do this shot in the middle of my B-roll sequences, but over time it just started feeling unnatural to me. In the first sequence, I'm doing a crane shot with the hopes of revealing the waterfall, but it just didn't feel right to me. So I decided to go for a forward push instead, and now there's a lot more energy and it feels like we're experiencing the waterfall with our subject. Note how I'm also cutting from the wide forward push to a medium forward push and then to a close-up, strengthening my point from earlier on. Gimbals are pretty amazing, and it's so easy to get a cool shot these days. Don't just do a movement because it looks cool. Think about the shot and be intentional in what you're trying to communicate. This video is proudly brought to you by the Alpha Universe, a free learning platform with educational content from a variety of photographers and filmmakers across all genres. Check out the link in the description below and sign up for a free membership. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.